Our next presenter is Nathan Lynn. Nathan is a musician and folklorist from Western Kentucky. He's also coordinator of the McCracken County Public Library Local and Family History Department, where he's been since 2011. A Kentucky colonel and graduate of Murray State University, he's served on the Kentucky Oral History Commission, as well as the editorial boards of the Jackson Purchase Historical Society and Kentucky Folk Life magazine. Nathan is a songwriter and a founding member of the bands Bon and the Mash and the Wheelhouse Rousters, who have toured internationally performing traditional music of the area around Paducah. His presentation is called The Mary Wheeler Collection, a Lower Ohio Valley Folk Song Archive. Please help me welcome Nathan Lynn.
Thank you so much. My name is Nathan Lynn, and when I heard that this conference was going to be in Cairo, I was beside myself and felt like it was something that I wanted to be a part of. So I'm very honored to be here with you all today. The presentations have been amazing. Great job, y'all, and I'm humbled to be with so many scholars. So thank y'all. I've already learned so much. Cairo is a place I've grown up close to here. My home is about 20 minutes from here, and my wife is from Hillsboro, Missouri. So I have traveled through the bottoms of Western Kentucky, up to Cape Girardeau and up into St. Louis. Hundreds and hundreds of times. I grew up on the river. My father was a mussler who dug the river for freshwater mussels. He's also a fisherman. So I've grown up near the water and camping in the Ballard County bottoms right across from Cairo, close to the Wycliffe Mounds, squirrel hunting and fishing. And this area is very special. And when we talk about confluence, this is a confluence of American culture. And it's great that we're here. What a great title. In the changing landscape of libraries, it's ironic. I am a librarian and I'm here speaking in a library, and I love that we still have a card catalog here, a physical card catalog. So last night I was performing aboard an excursion boat. I've taken numerous, for the last 12 years, no, 2001, I started playing on boats, so 24 years, wow. I've been performing on boats like the Delta Queen, the River Barge Explorer, and boats that travel up and down these rivers, and have been fortunate enough to float from Paducah to Cairo and across the confluence. So when I took a job at the McCracken County Library after being a broke folk musician and working for the Forest Service for a while, I found in the library's archives that we housed a collection of river music. And that's what I'm going to try to talk to you about today. And now that we've got this up here, if you would like to research this more, you can go to the library's website and click on our digital collections button. And over here on the side, there is a Mary Wheeler collection. Mary Wheeler was a musicologist. She was also a veteran, you could say. She was first in the first American Red Cross. She served in Toul, France during World War I and was presented with the French Medal of Honor there. She came back to the States and pursued studies in music. She's born in Paducah and spent most of her life there. And I'm telling her story because during her studies for her dissertation, she decided that she was going to write a dissertation on American folk music, period, which she quickly realized that was a huge undertaking and couldn't do. And she was visiting her home in Paducah and remembered the people who had loaded freight on steamboats when she was a child and their songs. And she set out to collect those and narrowed her dissertation into that. So during the 1920s, She returned from Hindman Settlement School in eastern Kentucky, where she recorded mountain songs, and she hand-wrote songs that she caught there. And there's a bass called the Song Catcher you might have seen that is very reminiscent to her time there. She comes back to Paducah, and she sets out to start collect the songs of former roustabouts and chambermaids who had worked during the river packet boat era, loading freight, cooking, doing all the physical labor that this country was built on. And these were predominantly black men and women, as we see, who were doing all of this work. And she set out to record their songs, and she went house to house. She would write down lyrics for the songs, because she couldn't remember all those, but she could remember melodies in her head. And she would rush back to her home and type out the melodies and hand notation those, which you'll see here in a minute. We have those written out. We have over 100 and something songs in the collection that she went out and gathered from these men and women who had worked loading freight and cooking, doing all the manual labor that I was speaking of earlier. She published her dissertation into a book called Steamboatin Days, and you can purchase that on eBay or one of the sites online, ABE Books. It's published through Louisiana State Press, and was, I'm sure, made her fortunes. Jokingly, no, it did not. But she also took out a young man by the name of Walter W. Beasley, who had a Brownie camera, and he took pictures of the men and women that she was celebrating, recording their songs. We do not have any audio recordings of Mary's interviews. Alan Lomax writes to her in the 1930s and says, "Hey, I would love to send you an audio recorder for you to go out and record these songs." And I don't know her response to him. I don't have that, but she did not take that up. She lived in Paducah, passed away. She did perform some of these songs. Her niece performs them. She was an opera singer, and it is a different level of cultural appropriation, more than even when I try to perform these songs. But when Bertha Wenzel, her niece, who performed these songs, passed away, she left them to the McCracken County Public Library. Excuse me. And they set, and people did some research. Robert, who's here, did some research. Greg, you might have known about this collection too. But when I was tasked with creating a digital collection for the library, this was my second year there. This hit home with me, not for just Mary Wheeler, because at some point I realized that Mary was on the verge of exploiting these men and women too by her own research, the same way that you could say that I have done with my research. It's a very thin line, and no matter people's intentions, we have to be careful of how we take these stories from people and use them. End of the day, though, she recorded them, and we have these recorded in written form and photographic evidence of her work. We digitized a large portion of her collection. She has a whole other collection of mountain songs in World War I and World War II. She also served with Red Cross in World War II as a nurse. So we have this whole other collection, which we have not put online. We're working on digitizing. But to me, this is the most important collection that our library has. It is one of a kind. In the changing library landscape, you can get a Tom Clancy novel online or anywhere in the world. You cannot get regional, rural history of the men and women who built this country like you can in our local library's history collection. So I encourage you all to go out to local libraries and see what people are not accessing, because if it's in a closet not being accessed, it needs to be lifted up. So that's what we're trying to do here. We put all these online, and I hope that you will go home and try to research these yourself. You can browse all, or you can search by word if you wanted to. And we're just going to look through some of these and see Mary's work. So she would go out and collect these songs, and then she would type these lyrics out. You can see this is Abraham Lincoln's song. She has like 20 versions of this she collected. She also got pictures, and when I put these online, I tried to go back and do some ancestral research. Unfortunately, Mary did not always get someone's last name, and she used some language that is not the greatest, has not aged the best. But I tried to find these people and lift their stories up, and I found out that a lot of them came to Paducah in the early 1900s from places in land between the lakes or land between the rivers in western Kentucky. A lot of them came from Birmingham. And they traveled all over the U.S., up and down the Ohio, Tennessee, with Paducah being such a confluence of the Tennessee and Ohio River right there, just like Cairo is here. You get a very eclectic group of songs. You have spirituals, you have story songs, you have soundings, like we think of Mark Twain. You have love songs about heartbreak, historical fiction. So much to tell here. And so if you go here, you could find steamboat pictures as well. Pages out of her book that weren't published. Some of these pictures are just amazing. This is by Lucas Weekly, who I believe was from Cairo. She came to Cairo collecting songs as well. If this will load here. And she would write down who she collected them from and try to tell a little story about them. Oh, dare I refresh this? Here we go. And then our viewer, you can also find a picture of individuals that she took at their homes. So this is a one-of-a-kind American folk music collection that I hope you all maybe can find some use for in your research. Our library also has a ton of other items on our digital collection that you might like. And we'll search for the word Cairo and just see what comes up. My son and I were passing through not too long ago, and we were stopped here, and he said, "I think it's called Cairo, Dad." And I said, "No, man, I'm from Heath. No, I'm from 30 minutes from here. It's Cairo." And he was like, "No, I think it's Cairo. I learned in school that we say Cairo." And I couldn't handle it, so there was a lady walking by, and I said, "Ma'am, my son and I are having a discussion. Could you slowly and distinctly tell us exactly where we were at?" And she said, "Sure, honey, Dollar General." Oh. We'll take either pronunciation. So we're going to search the word Cairo. I know I'm supposed to be talking about river music, but since our library is so close, we focus on access to West Kentucky, which some people call the Jackson Purchase. I'm on a mission to change that name and get it back to just West Kentucky. We also represent Southern Illinois, Southeast Missouri, and Tennessee. We have over 40,000 items here if you would like to search them. But if we search Cairo, if this will work here, it's going to bring up a lot of different things besides the Mary Wheeler collection. Cairo High School photographs that we've been gifted through different collections. We have oral histories talking about Cairo's history, steamboat photographs, if you can see, Civil War letters. These Sam Houston letters are great, talking about his time stationed here. Numerous pages. Let's see here. Lots of boats, as you can see, steamboats. This is a great photo here. This is of Service Master, an industry that was here at one time. What else do we got? Postcards. Lots of industrial pictures, which you can see, overhead photographs as well. So there's tons of stuff for you all to search here besides the Mary Wheeler collection, although I do hope that you will do that. I wanted to point out one or two specific things from the Mary Wheeler collection. One is a woman named Susan, who I believe's last name was Collins. Susan worked for Mary's family when she was a child, and also worked upon excursion boat or steamboats. And Mary went out and collected her songs when she was older. She went to her home. and she is featured in here she is right here, first thing that popped up. She's featured in Mary's book, and she sings a couple of songs. One is called Is Your Lamps Gone Out? And we have that online too. There's numerous pictures of Susan here. Susan took Mary onto steamboats when she was a child. She would take her to the river. And so I know that left a lasting effect on Mary and inspired her to go out and collect these songs. Susan's songs have been sung all over the world through our work at the library, trying to draw access to these untold stories. I've been able to perform and give this presentation, well, better presentations than this is pretty loose, in Mexico and South Korea, all over the United States. I've been to the Delta Symposium, which I hope that y'all can visit sometime in Jonesboro. That's a great place to visit as well. And we're trying to spread the word of this untold section of American folk music that should be lifted up. These songs were mainly call and response labor tunes. You had people loading freight in time as they were swinging or walking, and you would have a caller and a responder. So a lot of these that tell the toils that these folks were doing with their hard work, often underpaid. And maybe, are there any musicians in here? Maybe you can use some of these songs. Lomax does use one of these songs in his folk music, Songs of American Folk. I can't think of the title right now. But one of the songs, the John Gilbert, is featured there. The John Gilbert was a boat that ran in the Cincinnati trade, but also came down through here. And so if you're into steamboat history, this collection is right up your alley. It is like the last of the steamboating days before we see a switch to diesel. I'm honored that I can be here and tell this story. I'm in a band called the Woolhouse Rousters, and we perform a Roustabout song every night that we do historical talks. We started out performing a lot of these, and it quickly became known that, or felt by us, it was too much on cultural appropriation. So we've cut that down, and we just do one song and try to talk about this and get people to go see these stories that are real instead of hearing me, a white guy, try to replicate these live. It's just not the same. And so we've done our best to spread the word of this, and I hope that you all will use it. I know I'm running close on time. Do you all have any questions for me? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm familiar with the Steamboat Days book itself, but you mentioned the collection. Am I correct in guessing that you have more material than that book has?
We have a ton of material. We have 4 cubic feet.
Oh yeah, I need to talk to you.
And I have a finding aid I can send anyone. I kind of got obsessed with this, and I made it a mission. At a time when marginalized communities need to be lifted up, this was a way that I felt like I could draw some attention to Black history in America that had not been told and needs to be told, and these songs need to be sung. They tell great history of not just West Kentucky, Southern Illinois, but since they traveled, the folks that sung them traveled through boat, they brought in jazz music and they brought in all of these things. I should mention also from Paducah is Fate Marable, the father of riverboat jazz. Is anyone familiar with Fate Marable? Fate Marable grew up in Paducah, and he is known as the father of riverboat jazz. He worked for the Streckfus Steamboat line, and that's a whole interracial study, Streckfus and his relationship. And there's a great book out right now, Riverboat Jazz is one of them, about his story. There's also a great book called Riverboats, Show Tunes, and Blues by Matt Cheney. And it talks about Cairo and Cairo's role in the circus industry and all different types of entertainment industry. Circus practiced here for years, and there's stories of elephants roaming the streets. So yeah, Fate Marable, check him out too, and we have some information on him as well.
Could you give me the Matt Cheney's book title again?
I think it's called Riverboat Shows, Blues and Ragtime, and he spans everything. He's a very prolific writer, and he talks about every aspect of music from what I would consider the North Delta, maybe Cape Girardeau down into Jonesboro. Driving here today, I can't help but say this. Far Western Kentucky, when it's flooded, feels like the Delta. If you come to Far West Kentucky, and that is such a juxtaposition from Eastern Kentucky. And so part of my mission in life is to lift up the historical culture of our other area, whether it be indigenous cultures or Black culture or white, whatever, I don't care. I want to lift up this area because it's often forgotten, and we have such a rich heritage here in our country's history. Sorry, go ahead.
So I really appreciate you amplifying these voices, but I also, like I said at the end of my, I also wonder where I'm appropriating because I am so immersed in other cultures. But in the case where I work a lot in old time music because I'm doing contra dances and up until recently, the role of blacks in that music and dance has been silent.
Agreed.
So if I'm not amplifying it or people who look like me are not, I feel like someone should be doing it.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That's encouraging, I think. I will say that in that realm, I also study string band musics, and I'm a bluegrass musician. I love Irish and folk, but American string band music is a black music, and I have studied that in Paducah history and Cairo history as well, and have some research on that if anyone is ever interested. I recently reached out to Don Flemons. You know who Don Flemons is?
Yeah.
And shared this. I've been timid to share this with him for years because I grew up as Carolina Chocolate Drops were like stars, and they came up when I was trying to play music. So reaching out to him and just explaining the whole story and my guilt with if I was doing this, and he was so appreciative, and I'm hoping he's going to use this in some music going forward. Anybody?
Yeah. Just a couple things. If you're interested in Don Flemings, he's going to be performing in Nashville at the International Country Music Conference. So you might want to check their website. That's a good conference, well worth attending.
Cool.
I've seen him before, and he looks at these issues, I think, in some interesting ways. I'm glad you're in contact with him.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah. And a little aside, I've been enjoying your CDs, and from a whole range of songwriting and a variety of things. I think the last time I talked was about 5 to 10 years ago. Do you have any more new recordings out?
I do have new recordings, and I'm also a folk singer, and I write historical fiction music.
Yeah.
And I'd have CDs online. You can find any of those. And I have 2 new projects coming out soon that I've recorded about my time traveling. I also was a transporter of cars in a semi. I rode across the country for 5 years in a white Freightliner, transporting cars with my friend. And I have a whole album about that whole culture as well. So that's coming out soon. Okay. Did you have a question?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
What was Susan's last name?
I believe Susan's last name is Collins. I cannot verify it. I've done extensive genealogy trying to verify that her last name is Collins, and I'm 99% sure, but as soon as I say that, someone will come back. I should mention, I've switched this conversation from talking about Mary Wheeler to trying to talk about the men and women whose story it is. When I started out, we've kept the name Mary Wheeler Collection because it's a huge collection, and she has so many facets. She was very prominent in women's liberation. She was doing things that women weren't doing at this time period. So I want to lift her up as well. But in this case, this is the people's story. And so I think that was Susan Collins.
Okay.
It's very short. Sorry. Hey, Robert.
You mentioned that Miss Wheeler was at the Heinemann Settlement School
She was.
in eastern Kentucky. And we lived there for a couple of years.
Wow, I didn't know that.
60s.
Full circle.
And it's the first connection I've ever heard, really, between eastern and western Kentucky.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that. We get forgotten.
There must be
down here.
more, particularly in music.
There needs to be more. I agree. And Cairo is such a music hub. I mean, so many blues musicians came through here and went on to St. Louis. I think Townsend, guitar player, came through here. And so that's a whole other study and talk. I'm sorry, I wish I had longer. Thank y'all so much for having me.